We've now entered the second half and final half of the Energy Leadership Forum 2026. The first half was high level. We've heard the philosophical, geopolitical. We've heard from the financial angle. We've heard the nexus, some of the biggest complexities. But behind all these considerations, there's actually doers, people that actually get the wires, get the technology, develop the technology, invest, and there's out of all sectors of energy, one is particularly interesting. It is heat, right? Because heat represents more than 50% of the entire energy demand, and within heat, there's several segments. Today, we have the luxury of talking about the hardest part of the heat, industrial heat, to abate, high temperature heat, and we do it in a very, very powerful way by bringing together the entire value chain of technology, deep tech technology adoption. We have the technology provider, we have the startup with Lina that takes the technology and develops. We have the end user, Holcim, that is not just a buyer, but also through their corporate venture capital unit, an investor. And then we have the evidence that it works from Rockwool, where this process has happened already and it is in an advanced stage, so we can hear and ask questions about deep tech adoption. So what's given that basically the model is kind of functioning, ABB has a history, a success track record on that. What are the limiting factors of tech adoption? Is it capital? Is it technology? Is it customers? Is it education?
Let me start.
Yeah, you can start.
Marco, very good question. And then let me start with the technology perspective, and certainly there is no limitation on the technology side, to ramp up and scale these electrical heating applications and technology, Technology is available, What may have to be done is maybe some adaptive developments and some small engineering changes, but overall, no revolutionary technology inventions are required. So that's already a very good news, no limitation factor. What is challenging here, but not the limitation, is then, once we have the technology, we have to include the whole value chain, starting with supply chain management, with manufacturing, operations, product engineering, quality, and once the stuff is installed in the field, for sure, we need service 24/7 globally, in case, for example, also from Rockwool, and maintenance, to make the whole thing run without any unexpected interruptions. Now, let me come more to the limitations here. What I see is, the first one is then clearly on the governmental and regulatory side. I mean, we can join any climate meetings and conferences, and we always hear we are behind. We are behind the target because there is no bold leadership here, on this side, to make things happen, to define unbureaucratic policies, for example. That's clearly missing and is a limitation factor. And then maybe, and that's a topic which we discussed last year here at this event, again, it's about on the implementation side, on the end user side, making energy a strategic asset on your executive board level is certainly a good idea and puts you in a much favorable position towards basically becoming competitive and really, or at least on the mid to long term. And that's something which people should realize. Then, okay, I mean, finally to put things together, energy efficiency is not just about sustainability. Sure, it's about sustainability, no doubt about it. But there is another component coming along with it, and that is the competitiveness. By being, aware of energy savings, we can become much more competitive, and this is unfortunately one of the most under-leveraged things, in the industry today. So I would close my remarks to this question with that.
Thank you, Gerald. Lina, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so SaltX technology, we develop or we take what ABB is developing and then develop that into a solution for the cement and quicklime industry so that you can decarbonize it by using electrification. And we have passed important milestones when it comes to technology, to partnerships with the customers who are dedicated to this track and to other technology partners. But what's limiting adaptation is more the location. So this business case only holds in certain locations today. You need green electricity to a good price, competitive price. You need a high load, of course, and a stable electricity grid. And this also, for the decarbonization journey, you need CO2 outtake. So you need somewhere to put the CO2. And this makes the business case good in certain locations, like Northern Norway, where we will build the first pilot, but not everywhere. So that's limiting today.
Björn?
Bjørn Andersen, I'm an industrial producer. So for me, what's important is that I have access to grid, and you can say that's obvious. Right now in Germany, 10 years waiting time to get access to grid. So I think you, Lars, said the German system is a disaster. I agree to that. Secondly, you have to make a capital commitment to get the grid that is actually for a board almost unacceptable to take on that capital commitment, not owning the assets afterwards. Then, unfortunately, electrification is not competitive. And to be honest, as a consumer, I don't care, or as an industrialist, I don't care about the commodity price alone. I care about the full landed price in the plant. And the commodity price is only 1/3 approximately of that cost. So commodity price is perhaps not so important. And therefore, it's difficult to convince the boards about the business case. And let's be honest about it. CO2 emissions today are almost free. I think the EU ETS system right now has a carbon price around €80 per ton. In our business case, in order to make electrification competitive, we need to go to €200. And I don't know when that will happen, but I think it will take some time. So in the meantime, what I'm trying to convince the board about is that you cannot gauge a new technology with something that has been running for 100 years. Optimization takes time. What's optimistic about this is we actually have the technologies today. Lina is deploying plasma, other electrifications. We today have 3 technologies we can use to replace the incumbent fossil fuel technology. But it costs capital, and the business case is not as attractive as it could be because the regulatory frameworks are still based on what happened 100 years ago mainly. Try and do a PPA. If you're familiar with power purchase agreements, if you want to make a PPA where it's the cheapest, you have to take the full PPA on your balance sheet. Let's assume that's 10 years of power consumption. I don't think any CFO would like to do that. So there's certain regulatory changes that has to happen in order to make adaptation faster. But the technologies exist. Innovation has been done to a large extent, and there is today actually ecosystems cooperating across technologies and across companies that makes this possible. And it's actually happening as you speak. But there are certain things that has to happen to make it competitive.
Thanks.
So at Holcim, as a cement producer, we have a net zero roadmap for 2050 for decarbonization, and obviously energy is one of the 3 big levers actually on how we want to tackle that. Now, electrification is one element of the transformation, how we can decarbonize energy. Right? There are also other means of moving into more like biomass, for example, and so on. So what we have to understand is that electrification is standing up against other technologies, other means, and especially also very well established and refined existing processes. So you have kind of this conflict of emerging novel technologies with mature, very advanced technologies. which then you talked already about business case, make it very challenging to have then also kind of a working business case, also with predictability of future assumptions that you're taking regarding CO2 prices, regarding availability of green power and prices for green power. And lastly, maybe a third element on why it's so challenging to push these things ahead is also kind of we have to think about renewing a whole fleet of assets. We are operating 35 cement plants in Europe. Each transformation is a massive investment. Now, money is one side, but also the resources of suppliers, of people doing the project management for these projects, that's a kind of a multi-decade transformation.
Yeah, that's incredible. The magnitude, the timeline, the technology, the complexities. I think what you guys are undertaking when you decide to transform a production process from one energy carrier to another is monumental, and I'm glad that we're here to voice it. And I hope it will inspire some investors and some technology developers in this respect. So, how then can the industrial energy demand be transformed, the industrial heat be transformed? What are your sort of thoughts there?
Yeah, if I may answer first, yeah. Again, well, I mean, pilots and prototypes and these things are available. So on a small scale level, we have already proven, that things can work. What is required now for a broader rollout and for scaling the whole things, all these electrical heating technologies, is certainly predictable, supportive regulatory framework. As already addressed before, that is very important also for the main stakeholder, the industrial partners, to be able to plan, their investments on a longer term. They need some reliable backup for that, and a supportive framework is essential. I basically see that, on a high level to be a kind of a multi-level challenge here, on multiple pillars. But 4 pillars I see is the following. First pillar is technology. And we address that. And there are very promising startup companies like SaltX, who provide these technologies. There are companies like us, like ABB, who make out of these technologies a product, scale it up. The technologies then proven can be installed reliable on a larger scale. So that's basically, as I said, it is existing. We have that as the most important or very important pillar here. An enabler, yeah, and then comes second pillar for me is basically also the industry as such. Industry decides, for example, with bold decisions on an executive board level. Energy is a strategic asset. We want to decarbonize. They identify those applications which can be decarbonized in their industrial processes, and that's basically the second pillar. And there it's more like attitude is okay, or attitude as is, should be board level. Energy conscious, making it a competitive element even, or making your company competitive by that. And then the third one, third one is utilities, for sure. I mean, it's much easier for these industries, to go that path if they know they have, as Björn also mentioned, they have reliable, competitive priced green energy. And that's the task of the utilities to provide that. And last but not least, again, we come back to the governmental and regulatory side, where, basically you need some lean and unbureaucratic policies, in order to be able to act, in a halfway predictable manner. So I see that are the main pillars who can, if they work together, if they are reasonably set up, then we accelerate. So basically, to summarize the whole thing, you start focused on a small scale level, then you scale deliberately, and then you really walk the talk. You have a bold focus and a bold make bold decisions and implement. That would be from my side how I see that, how we could accelerate in an ideal case.
Thank you, Gerald. Lina.
Yeah, maybe to describe a little bit on how we've been working to accelerate this far, and also talking to the blue collar case where he also said that to show and to act, and then the market will be open. And this is really what we see as well. To get the first commercial, not only pilot, but commercial factories is where the acceleration can start. Then more will trust the technology and more will invest in it. And to get there, you need to build partnerships because there is a risk involved. It's technical risk, it's financial risks, and other risks, of course. And you need to have partners to share that. In our case, to build technical partnerships with other bigger companies has been very important. Then to build partnerships with customers who are really trusting the technology and investing both in the future, but also in the roadmap. Getting funding from governmental institutions or soft funding in different fields. And then show that the technology step by step, like Gerald talked about, that you scale it and you show that it's working step by step. So really walking the talk and building those networks that will invest in the technology. Once that is done and you have a commercial factory in place, then I truly believe that acceleration will follow.
No, I absolutely agree to that. And then from our point of view, who basically live from selling insulation, we don't live from decarbonization. What we have been very fortunate to have is an ownership structure where the family behind the business really have a long-term view. So it's not short-term return on invested capital. They have a long-term view. They're willing to take some risk as long as they are confident that the technologies can work at scale. So we have proven through some pilots that it is actually possible to decarbonize stone wool production. We have led the way in using plasmic technology together with ABB and ScanArc in Sweden. And we have shown that this is possible to produce a high quality product at industrial scale and also be reliable, because these plants run 8,000 hours a year. And of course, our customers still want to have reliable service of products. So by proving the case, so it takes a little bit longer time in the beginning, but now we are really accelerating implementation. We are now decarbonizing 3 plants per year. We have an allocated fund from the board saying as long as you stay within this amount of money, and it's not insignificant, then you have the freedom to go ahead. You don't have to come and ask the board for every business case. So we have a framework now to decarbonize. And then simply long-term planning, because as I said before, grid takes a long time. So therefore you really have to work with long-term planning and see where is it possible to decarbonize. And that might not always be where you want to do it, because you have to get grid access, you have to have affordable renewable power. And by the way, we have also signed up for the SBTi 1.5 degree scenario, including being net zero by 2050. And we have the plan to do it. We know how to do it, which is kind of cool, working with ABB and others. But we have proven that the pilots work, we have proven it at scale, and now we are really accelerating. But it requires some guts by the board, especially the first time it goes wrong, to say, are you sure you have this under control? And I want to give an example, if I may. We have decarbonized our plant here in Switzerland. You passed it at Flumroc when you took the train up here. 3 months ago, that plant went into disaster mode. It was in all the news in Switzerland. And then to go and explain to the board what has happened and why we believe we have this under control, and then have the board to accept that explanation, I think took some courage. Yeah? But we started up today, by the way, again, so we are back on track.
I mean, for us, the theme to tackle that is partnerships. I think we already heard the topic about complexity, the different layers. And I mean, our CEO already coined the term where he said partnership is the new leadership. Now, it is customers, suppliers, it's the public authorities. From my perspective as a representative of Holcim MAQER Ventures, so this is our open innovation approach, it's the new tech partners, it's these new innovators who come with the emerging technologies. And I mean, we need them because they need to somehow bring their technology to the construction, to the cement industry in our case. And at the same time, through such a partnership, we can help to advance the maturity level of these emerging technologies. What I just said before is a hindering, right? And the partnerships, these insights will generate then also new confidence or additional confidence to move forward with such technologies. So we are convinced that this is kind of the way of how to accelerate.
I like the partnership is the new leadership. It's a very good line. So we heard at the beginning from Satoshi from Mitsubishi how Japan managed to combine energy sovereignty with energy efficiency. At a business level, can business cases combine energy efficiency with energy sovereignty or independence? Gerald.
Yeah, a very good question, Marco. And yes, absolutely yes. And let me take this showcase example for the collaboration between Rockwool, ScanArc, and us, ABB. Basically, we managed, within roughly 1 year to come from a prototype, to a tested pilot phase. And basically, with that, we already prove, that some operational efficiency and energy independence can advance and go hand in hand, And then for sure, maybe with that it's not done, and we are aware about that, there's no free lunch, now, but we have this pilot phase, we are already in the middle of a rollout, we are working now on several orders, and they are timed, and now very, very careful. You have to be very careful. It starts with supply chain management, They come into the game because there are critical components involved in that, critical lead times, long lead items. We have to think years ahead, that's what we have to do. And then also operations, operations and project management, these are brownfield cases, you have a small time schedule in which you can replace, these coal-based heating by electrical heating. So you have to have a strict project management timekeeping. For sure, our customer Rockwool expects some cost reductions. As we increase the volume, we may have good ideas how we can, by leveraging the volume, get down with the cost level as well. Yeah. And once this stuff is implemented, for sure, we have to think about 24/7 around the globe support service. Yeah. Because any interruptions cost too much money. You have to make sure that it's immediately we take care of issues, and even to prevent them, with service contracts. We have to think about that we are on the shortest time, very few hours between a failure and a call, that we have a qualified service engineer on site, plus the maintenance over the whole lifetime. It's better to invest there a little bit, to prevent some outages rather than be sorry afterwards. So basically, these are the things which we have to consider here, and but at the end of the day, that goes hand in hand, operational efficiency and energy independence, So can be done, not basically a disabler of the whole thing, or a killer. Yeah.
Lina, what are your thoughts on that? Thank you, Gerald.
To be frank, yes, but not immediately. I mean, first of a kind and a pilot is more expensive than the fossil fuel that we have been improving over decades. So today, no, but in the future, yes, definitely. And today, if you find the right location, as I said, that you have the stable electricity at a good price, it is okay, the comparison. It's not too bad. But to really get this scaled and globally scaled, then you need to improve on the electricity prices, and you need to learn the technology development. We need to improve the technology. We need to establish the supply chains and everything that the mature technology already has. So there is still work to be done.
Björn?
So I think we have to. I remember 2022 and the horrible war in Ukraine when that happened. I don't know if how many here can remember what happened to the gas prices. They went up 20x. Not 20 euro, 20x. Yeah? And Europe has been hooked on cheap Russian gas, 15 euro per megawatt hour. If we want to be competitive, I think we have to find a way to make our energy system independent of all these geopolitical situations. And I do believe that decarbonization is part of that. Also energy efficiency of your houses, by the way, go insulate them, just a little trick. It's easier to save energy than it is to greenify energy. And then we need a full portfolio. I think Lawrence said it very well before. We need a full portfolio of energy sources, behind the meter, in front of the meter, whatever, to make sure we have a grid built up of many different sources. Do we need nuclear? Perhaps, but it will take 15 years to establish anything. So in the meantime, we have to find other good ways. Fossil fuel, at least coke and oil, unfortunately is super efficient in transporting kilojoules. It only has one disadvantage, and that's CO2. So therefore, we have to find other ways to make sure that the European energy system becomes independent, because otherwise we will not be competitive, and we will lose. Look at what gas costs in the US. It's 1/5 of the gas in Europe. So we have to find ways to make sure that the energy system becomes independent, and decarbonization is a big part of that.
Bengt?
I mean, we have to make sure that all those business cases of the new projects, transformative projects, even if they are kind of first of a kind, that they somehow have a business case. And I mean, that's an opportunity to look more holistic from different perspectives at those business cases. And one dimension is just the process side, right, where we do the electrification. Now, I would encourage the teams there that just going from fossil fuels to electricity, it's not just kind of you pluck just the energy form around, look at the whole process, and maybe do this a little bit, this deconstructive innovation, right? I mean, what are new ways that you could do? Could you think about capacities different? How could you leverage these very low electricity prices when they are available? To open up, are there opportunities? And then there is a second dimension. I mean, if we are now producing a decarbonized cement, we are producing a new product. So this is a new product. This is not yet existing before, and there is a customer segment that also wants a decarbonized cement, right? I mean, it's not just our industry which would like to decarbonize. All the other industries want to decarbonize as well. So we are creating a value for the customer. And I mean, this needs to be rewarded, especially in these times where we do those first-of-a-kind plants, that you somehow also get this into your pricing. It's a possibility for growth. It's a possibility for increased margins. And one analyst looking at our results once, he said, at Holcim, sustainability rhymes with profitability. And that's exactly where we want to go.
Thank you. If anyone has a question, get ready, and not now, but but just after this question, and I'm about to ask. Thank you, Lars. So there's as we mentioned before, there's the geopolitics, policy changes, political elections. They can get people to change their views, and legislation can change, and regulation play a big role in what you guys in your own mission, right, respectively. So how to be optimistic despite these headwinds?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, forget about all these things, on your journey, focus on the things you want to do. And there, for sure, I have my optimism, and I get it from somewhere, first of all. And it's not about optimism only, it's also about persistence. It's my experience for my whole life, being persistent results in success, and almost always. Just be persistent enough, never give up, always stand up, continue the work you have done if you're convinced that it's right. And let me take some examples from nature even, where which justifies this. I'm optimistic, I mean, look, for example, take a small stone, throw it in the water, Such a very small stone makes big circles, relatively fast, click. The effect is impressive, but much more impressive effect, is one of, for me, the most impressive natural things I have seen. Look at Iguazu, if you have been there, waterfalls in Brazil and Argentina, When I looked at them, I was wondering, wow, what a thing, what a power, what scale of water masses. But then think about, where does that origin? It originates in a small well. I don't know where, somewhere. Everything starts small. The biggest oak tree, it starts small with a seed which you plant, But let's now get away from these natural comparisons which boost my optimism, you know. Let's go to the business and the financial things. And also there are good news, you know. We see absolutely an increasing will to invest in this decarbonizing technology from end users, from industries. So the path is going in the right direction. Not fast enough, we know. You know, by far not yet, but always things start small, you know, but the direction goes the right way, you know, the pace is right. And that basically convinces me, you know, the right thing to do, start small and then scale up and never give up, you know, forget about all the hurdles which you have left and right, because it's not my job, you know, to eliminate them. It's my job to make sure I am ready once, you know, these guys are ready. Yeah.
Thank you, Gerard.
I find my positivism in the discussions with the customers right now. I think the dialogue has really changed from maybe 3-4 years back, from being, is this possible and can this really work, to talking more about, okay, what limitations do we have and how do we overcome them? So technology has been proven at certain scale, and we are now talking, okay, how do we find the right places to build, start building, and really showing progress. And that, of course, gives me a lot of energy for the future.
Thank you, Lina.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think for 5, 6, 8 years ago, we were discussing how is it possible? Can we find the right technologies that satisfy the quality of the process? Now it is not about how, it is deployment. Yeah. So now it's more about how do we fund it? Can we find the money? Is the customers willing to pay for a product that has lower embodied carbon? But we are no longer talking about, is it possible? So I think today we have solutions that's scalable. We can see, we can attract talent working with these solutions. So I'm optimistic because I know it's possible, at least within my industry. And I agree with this ecosystems approach. And we are working. 10 years ago, Rockwool would not enter into these partnerships. We wanted to keep all IP by ourselves. We wanted to invent things ourselves because we are the most clever people in the world within our industry. These days we work across industries. We work with different partners because we realize now that is a way to accelerate deployment and also take less risk, by the way. So again, we know it's possible. We're no longer discussing how, we're discussing speed. So I'm super optimistic that way. Then there's many other things I'm less optimistic about, but that's outside my span of control anyway.
Thank you, Björn.
Yeah, I think my optimism is coming from, on one side, the continued commitment of leadership, management, kind of investors to the ambition overall. I think then it's the actions that the organization is driving. I mean, currently we are having the largest CCUS project pipeline in Europe. Now, that's not electrification, but it's decarbonization. And we are kind of developing and maintaining one of the broadest technology portfolio through partners on how we can do other innovative emerging technologies for electrification. And I think, so that's a bit commitment actions, but also the results that we see and the signals we get from markets and from customers, that's very rewarding and encouraging that this is the right track.
Thank you. Lars?
Thanks. For you, I guess I go after you, but it doesn't matter. I understand that the technologies, basically, they don't work with zero CO2 price. Is that correct? If CO2 price was $0 or $2 or $3, it wouldn't work, I assume.
It would not be competitive. That's correct.
Okay, so we agree that there's a huge amount of money that needs to be invested. Now, does that not make Europe less competitive, number one? Number two, we know that Europe actually is irrelevant in global scale, right? China, India, Southeast Asia, America, that's where the music is playing. Now, for Holcim, we supply Holcim globally with fuel products. And is Holcim in their evaluation considering the actual real life cycle emissions? For instance, hydropower doesn't have zero CO2. Biomass doesn't have zero CO2, neither solar or wind. So is that considered?
Well, I guess we are considering kind of what is currently reflected when we do a declaration of CO2 emissions in the EPDs. I don't know if then kind of what is the hydro thing. We get this number that we get from the power generator, right?
So what I'm saying is there's certain wrong assumptions in my view. There's wrong assumptions all the way. It appears it's not actually competitive without a tax, which is CO2 is a tax. In Singapore, the tax is lower than in Germany, right? So it's not competitive. That means actually, if we do it, Germany, Europe is becoming less competitive, and we're also assuming that the so-called green energy is greener than it actually is. So if we were to be honest, would the picture change?
I think that's a hugely complex question. I would challenge whether or not Europe will be competitive, because I think also if you don't take risk on new technologies, you will not be competitive. And we know a lot of things happening within the whole technology space where productivity is increasing. With these transitions we are doing, we can also see we become more productive. I mean, per labor hour and per megawatt deployed. But I think if you don't take a risk here, I don't see how we will ever be competitive. And I guess the CO2 issue is a global issue. It's not a European issue. The fact that Europe has deployed an EU ETS system, which is basically it's a trading system for CO2, yeah? I don't know if you can call it a tax, perhaps you can, I don't know. We are a company that has to produce locally. We produce close to our customers. Our products typically travel 300 kilometers before we lose competitiveness. So whatever I can offer in high quality markets that will distinguish myself and also avoid those who could import to Europe and be competitive with them, I think that's a good thing. Do we do it blindly? Do we take our head under the arm and just run? No, we evaluate the business case, as you say, and we look at where does it make the most sense for the stakeholders we have, being customers, being the neighbors we have around our plants, all the things we take into consideration. Yeah. But if we don't evolve our energy systems, I still think we'll lose competitiveness because we are not energy independent in Europe.
Just an observation. So Lars said something that got me thinking. He said Europe is irrelevant. It's only the US and China.
Exaggerating, of course.
And I'm going to exaggerate the other side. I think we should be very careful, and I hear what you said, Bjorn, but I think we should be very careful. What are the elements of competitiveness? So I lived in Sweden for about 20 years. I've lived in the US the same amount of time. And I can tell you, both of them are competitive depending on what you're measuring. Mm. If you're measuring lifestyle, if you're measuring certain factors, I can guarantee you that every American will move to Europe. If you're measuring money, if you're measuring how much cash you have, every European might want to move to America. So I think when we think of the energy discussion, we should be very careful in saying one place is more or less competitive, because I can argue with you. In Sweden, the tax you pay on electricity is one of the things that drives up the cost of electricity.
Fully agree.
But in the US, you don't have the same level of taxation on electricity. Now, why does Sweden have the taxes? Why does Denmark have the taxes? Because there's a social system that benefits from the taxes. So we need to look at the domestic policies of each of these countries to understand why they are competitive or not, and not just look at the blanket statement, because the electricity price in the US is cheaper, therefore the US is most competitive. I might get more money I might bring more money home in my salary in the US, but I got to pay for healthcare, I got to pay for schooling, I got to pay for all kinds of stuff. I don't have to do the same thing in Europe. So it's a misplaced comparison sometimes to say that one is more competitive than the other. We have to understand the local conditions in each of these countries and not globalize the conversation.
As I said, it's a very big question. By the way, electrification in the US is more competitive than electrification in Europe right now. And they don't have a carbon price. But that's just because of the energy mix and the cost of that and which state you are in, yeah?
Okay, so unless there's any burning question, I think we can wrap up with this panel. Thank you very much, you all, for joining this conversation. Amazing job. Thank you.